Hey there, I'm MrLeftTurn and welcome to my favorite race shop. So, today we're heading to the back of the pack again with another Season 1 episode. But I'm not going it alone. I have a special guest here to help me with the review. Please give a warm welcome to Wooden Sword. Thanks for stopping by the race shop today, Sword.
No problem, MrLeftTurn. Happy to help. What episode are we talking about today?
Oh, next to Over a Barrel, one of my least favorite episodes from Season 1. Look Before You Sleep.
I skipped my family reunion for this. This episode better have some redeeming quality, Lefty.
I'm a righty, thank you very much.
Ha! Not in that, OC. You don't have any fingers.
Yeah, whatever, Discount Excalibur. These people came here to see us tear this crap show apart.
Clever.
Anyway, I do enjoy the initial setup that causes the rift between Applejack and Rarity. AJ is trying to help rip down the broken tree branches so they won't cause any damage from the impending storm, while Rarity is just sprucing up the branches and not ripping them down at all. It's better if they get into a rift over a job than over something trivial like where to eat dinner or what music they should listen to. Although I do find Rarity's reaction to the mud under the picnic table pretty funny, along with Applejack's frustration over Rarity's pickiness. And I won't lie, seeing grown ponies fall to the argument never fails to make me chuckle.
Something I immediately noticed in the start of the episode was how much the voice actresses' voices have changed. Currently, Applejack has a deeper voice, contrasting to the other character for her actress, which is Rainbow Dash. But in this episode, her voice is much lighter and sounds a lot like Rainbow's. Rarity's has also changed, as she's nowhere as dramatic in all her speech as she is currently. Her voice is just so regular in this one. Although I completely understand that these two actresses were just getting started towards their voices for these characters, so it makes sense. But it's a huge difference from now.
Twilight inviting both Rarity and Applejack in to evade the storm, only to get overly enthusiastic about having her first slumber party, is pretty sweet considering that she never had one in Canterlot due to her only focusing on her studies. Even though I'm not sure books like that exist in our world, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do, the fact that Twilight pulled a Slumber Party 101 book out of the bookshelf was just so Twilight.
Which is another highlight of this episode. Since this is the pre-Alicorn Twilight, she's much more hyper and excited about the smallest things, which makes her cute. Yes, there are moments where she acts like her younger self in current episodes, but nowhere near as much as she used to, although this will become a problem later on.
And having only Rarity, Twilight, and Applejack as the main characters for the episode makes it interesting. This is the first episode in which Spike, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, and Fluttershy do not appear, so this leaves a good opportunity to see how the other three can play off each other. And so far, it's okay that Twilight doesn't notice the rift as of yet. There's not much to it, and Rarity and Applejack aren't acting all that hostile to each other yet. I love Rarity's uncomfortableness when it's clear that having a slumber party if Applejack was involved wasn't her cup of tea for the evening. And Applejack struggling with the hose made for a pretty funny gag.
If it's really raining that much though, can't she just, stick her hooves out the window? If it's really pouring like they say it is, then the rain should do the job just fine.
Honestly, I support Applejack's position on the mud masks, even if those are different from actual mud. And again, Twilight's overenthusiasm is still quite funny to witness, kind of like someone experiencing Comic-Con for the first time. But Twilight really doesn't strike me as a kind of pony who'd go crazy over a makeover. That's more Rarity's thing. However, Applejack's reaction to the Slumber Party book was right on par with her character, so Twilight's enthusiasm isn't too out of character yet. And I like how well Applejack and Rarity's opposite personalities clash when Applejack gets the mud mask and cucumbers applied to her face.
Well, I thought Twilight's reactions were well suited. After all, she's taking everything from a Slumber 101 book. I'm thinking that although she cares about the makeovers, they can never be seen again as long as she gets her checklist marked. Also, I think in these first few scenes, the writers are just trying too hard to make the two personalities collide. Rarity's fine, but it's Applejack that bothers me. She has no problem walking into someone else's house with muddy feet, and she eats all of her face cream along with the cucumbers. I understand that Applejack doesn't agree with the mud masks, but eating it? Can't you just say, no thanks? Or at least ask before eating someone else's stuff?
The visual humor of Applejack looking grumpy while wearing hair curlers really relates to me. I hated having to wear a tuxedo at my cousin's wedding in England, so I can sympathize with Applejack.
Don't really know why. Tuxedos are awesome. They make you look snazzy.
The ghost story scene where Rarity and Applejack take cheap shots at each other is rather childish like their earlier argument during the storm, but it works here, especially with how bad Rarity's scary noise comes off as. Although I've never personally been scared by a ghost story, I did like how Twilight's headless horse story left Rarity and AJ screaming like a pair of fillies. And it was pretty clever to have fireflies in the lantern instead of using a candle. Pretty resourceful if you ask me.
I'm honestly surprised that Twilight didn't catch on to their conflict right there, but they got it lengthened to 22 minutes somehow.
As for the Truth or Dare segment of the episode, this is where it really started to lose its steam. The segment starts out fairly decent with AJ and Rarity basically daring the other to stop acting like themselves, which is fine, and it appears Twilight is finally going to catch on to their spat and try to step in and fix it, but this is where her enthusiasm for the perfect slumber party really gets out of hand and obnoxious. Because how well your slumber party goes is more important than AJ and Rarity's friendship straining. And speaking of Truth or Dare, Applejack's first official dare to Rarity is really mean and not funny at all. Yeah, there's a storm outside with lightning, so dare Rarity to go outside in a lightning storm just to get her mane wet, AJ. There's absolutely no danger there. Twilight forcing Rarity to comply because
you have to. It's the rule.
Is really frustrating. Twilight is supposed to be the most book-smart and scientific pony of the main six. Surely she would know how dangerous a lightning storm is.
I don't agree with you there. Twilight did mention a lightning rod outside of her house, so if Rarity didn't go far outside, which she didn't, she would have been safe, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and the Titanic was claimed to be unsinkable. Anyway, Rarity's humiliating dare works better because it's not putting Applejack in danger, she's just forcing AJ to dress up in a princess outfit, which does offer a slight chuckle, but then they start bickering like kids again. And at this point it's becoming a little overplayed and annoying. We get it, they're polar opposites who aren't getting along. What would have worked better is if, say, AJ stopped talking to Rarity altogether, gave her the cold shoulder and stopped acting like she existed, only talking to Twilight. It would have at least forced Twilight to stop going to the slumber party book for an answer to everything.
But instead, they just completely ignore Twilight in complete disregard and pretend she's not even there unless the plot requires she say something important, like, let's stop playing this game, or let's go to bed. But don't worry, because Twilight's got her dumb slumber party book, whoop-de-doo.
Okay, at this point, Twilight's not oblivious anymore. She knows and can see that something is wrong, but she's so concerned with her slumber party that she brushes off that her friends are bickering like little 3-year-olds and chooses not to do anything about it. Look, I understand, it's her first slumber party and she's excited, but she's not the kind of pony to push friends aside for trivial things like this. She truly cared about her friends' feelings in the Ticketmaster and was willing to give up the tickets to make everyone happy. But here, she only cares about how well her slumber party goes. I guess with Spike gone, she can easily lose focus on the important things.
Just remember though that seasons 1 to 4 and sometimes in 5 was when Spike was the worst living organism to currently be around. So I don't think having Spike here is the best idea.
Yeah, Inspiration Manifestation and Equestria Games would disagree, but moving on. I have to admit that even though the episode is getting really aggravating at this point, seeing Rarity say she won't participate in something as crude as a pillow fight, only to get hit by AJ and say,
"It is on,"
is just hilarious since she's very proper and she even changes her voice just to say that. Her sudden change also reminds me of Princess Vespa blowing away the Spaceball troopers in Spaceballs after they shoot her hair with a laser. The pillow fight scene also provides some good action as well as some funny visual moments with how intense Applejack and Rarity take it. But seriously, Twilight couldn't decipher what pillow fight meant. Even though she's never had a slumber party before, I just can't buy that.
I reckon a really funny moment is when Twilight gets bombarded with pillows and seems like she's getting a little dizzy, attempting to get the girls to pipe it down a bit only to get bombarded with more pillows.
Right, can't forget that. As for the hogging the bed scene between AJ and Rarity, the inconsistency of the episode really doesn't have me as invested as I was at the beginning. Even AJ jumping into bed and forcing Rarity out doesn't strike me as funny at all.
It's not funny, it's just immature. Jumping into bed in a cannonball while someone's trying to sleep. Gosh, how does the Apple family sleep at night with you around?
Like I said earlier, if AJ or even Rarity stopped communicating with the other completely, I believe it would have worked better than them bickering like 3-year-olds the whole episode. And then Twilight has had enough, actually raising her voice to get them to stop. But of course, she pulls out the book again and states,
Right here that the number one thing you're supposed to do at a slumber party is have fun.
doesn't she realize how selfish she sounds saying that? I would be more concerned that my friends are at each other's throats than the fact a sleepover can't have one thing checked off the list. Yes, Twilight prefers to do things by the book, checking off lists and making sure everything is perfect, but the Twilight from Ticketmaster wouldn't act this way.
I hope you're happy. Both of you. You've ruined my very first slumber party.
Moving on.
Although it sounds selfish, she does get the point across of what her friends are doing to each other. But Twilight, maybe ask them what's wrong? Ask why they hate each other? You know, gotta be better than just saying, don't fight here, do it someplace else. Oh wait, she's still reading that book, so that explains it. I think that book has hypnotic powers. So a tree outside the other tree that they're living in gets struck by lightning, forcing it to come toppling over. Applejack goes to lasso it to pull it the other way, but Rarity yells out to stop her. Of course, Applejack, being the responsible pony she is, doesn't listen to Rarity and continues to pull the tree right towards the tree they're inside. Okay, I'm starting to hate Applejack in this episode, actually. It seems like she's criticizing Rarity for being fussy, but it seems like Applejack is actually being disrespectful and rude. She attempted to walk into Twilight's home with muddy feet, she ate Twilight's face cream and cucumbers without asking, and made a huge mess doing it, and she pulled a tree into Twilight's home. Rarity wasn't being fussy, she was just being respectful and caring for Twilight things. The only event I can think of where she was being fussy was when she made the bed again, but that's it. Applejack frickin' sucks. Just calm down, Sword. You're fine. It's okay, we're nearly done. Lefty, start talking for me, would ya?
Yeah, just take a breather there, Sword. I can give a little credit to the writers for bringing back the conflict from the beginning of the episode, and AJ's overconfidence deafening Rarity's cries to stop yanking on the tree branch works well with her character. It was a bad decision, I won't lie, but AJ is a brash pony who 99% of the time wants to do things her way, and sometimes that won't work. And Twilight is actually still angry, even stopping herself from sugarcoating what's wrong.
Well, it's not okay. There's a giant tree branch in the middle of my bedroom.
But then, she pulls out the book again.
And the book doesn't say anything about having a giant tree branch at your slumber party.
Okay, she admits that a giant tree branch in her room is a bad thing like any sane person would do, but then she consults the book again. At this point, I'm pretty much done with Twilight in this episode. As smart as she is, by now she should have stopped caring about the slumber party and really gave AJ and Rarity a good scolding for not behaving like friends. Especially AJ for being the one to yank the tree branch into the room.
At least I haven't found that entry yet.
Done.
Obviously in Season 1, Twilight thinks books are all-powerful demigods that hold answers to everything, including actual friendship. Admittedly, she still has a lot to learn about friendship, but because she's new to the whole thing, surely she would be paranoid about losing her friendship and stop consulting the bloody book. Yes, Twilight, it's a good book, I get it, but focus on the one important thing right now, which is there is a collapsed tree in your window! Applejack and Rarity could have left right here, right now, when Twilight would just be sitting inside the tree reading her dumb book. Common sense, learn it.
For the conclusion, it was nice to see Rarity and Applejack settle their differences and work together to fix the problem.
Although Twilight didn't exactly help them with the tree.
Even agreeing to act civil to make Twilight's slumber party end on a high note. What really stings is that this could have been a fantastic episode on how to see more eye to eye with friends that you don't agree with or are the polar opposite of. The setup to the spat between AJ and Rarity was great, and their personalities clashed in a pretty funny way in the first act of the episode, but the bickering was overused by the middle of the second act and I really stopped caring by then.
And although Twilight was cute and innocent at first, she was just handled terribly as a responsible character in this episode. Yes, I completely understand that none of the fighting was Twilight's fault, but if my two best friends were fighting, eventually landing a full-grown tree in my house, I would do more than read a bloody book. But Applejack was just as bad in my opinion. I honestly don't know who was worse. As for Rarity, she was fine. I liked how she was handled. Look, maybe they were aiming to make Applejack hateable, and if they did, it certainly worked because she sucked.
Even though I disagree about the muddy hooves part, I do have to agree that Applejack was a little bit of a jerk at times. But remember, if Rarity had completed the job she was asked at the beginning of the episode, that last tree branch wouldn't have been there to crash into Twilight's bedroom. But as I said earlier, I think the episode could have worked so much better if Rarity or Applejack was so fed up that they stopped talking to the other. I preferably would have chosen Rarity as the one to stop talking to AJ because she was sent out into a lightning storm for a dare. Having Applejack realize that maybe her disagreement with Rarity went too far still could have worked out in the end when she apologized and begged Rarity for help with the tree branch when she finally says, "I'm sorry and please." But the biggest complaint I have is just how obnoxious the writers made Twilight, caring more about her slumber party than her friends and even the safety of her own home. Pretty much right after the pillow fight scene, Twilight should have been fed up and at least tried to get Rarity and Applejack to talk to one another to try and fix the problem. And if they refused, she should have made them sleep downstairs on the floor unless they decided to act civil. Friends are more important than a slumber party, Twilight.
But the Twilight books are, once again, all-powerful demigods who hold answers to life itself. Let's face it, Slumber 101 was probably written by a primary school kid.
That all being said, among the inconsistencies of the episode and obnoxious Twilight, there were still a few good parts of the story. The first act is very solid in setting up the problem and keeping it subtle so Twilight doesn't know something is wrong just yet. And some of the cheap shots that AJ and Rarity toss at each other are pretty funny, especially the pillow war they end up having.
The arguments that both Rarity and Applejack had at the start in the rain were funny and interesting, although childish, but eventually it just became the same thing recycled for 18 minutes until they finally realized what they were doing. No thanks to Twilight and that god-forsaken book. The episode still had entertaining parts in it, but the characters, apart from Rarity, were completely unlikable. Although when Applejack apologized at the end, I feel like the episode was mainly focusing the apology on Applejack, which was acceptable.
These few good parts are much welcomed, but they're over so soon that we're stuck with, as you said, Sword, the same recycled crap for 18 minutes, which is why Look Before You Sleep gets a yellow flag rating. If the first act wasn't as solid as it was, it definitely would have gotten a red flag. Ugh, thank Celestia that's over.
Want to hit the pub and drown this episode out of our polluted memories?
I'm driving.